Thank you. Mr. Coffman.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, General Petraeus and Madam Secretary, for your service to our country. The Secretary of Defense recently said at a speech at West Point that if a general came up to him and recommended that we do the similar action, that we invade, pacify, and worse the effect, engage in nation building again, that he would say absolutely not. And I just want to second that. And I think we have significant, security interest in Afghanistan. And I think we don't want the Taliban to take over the country, to make that a permissive environment whereby they could leverage that as a nation state to further destabilize Pakistan, to assist the Taliban on the other side of the Durand line, that we need some basis for which we can launch attacks against al-Qaeda in the Fatah areas of Pakistan. So I think that those are certainly significant, but we seem to have taken the most costly approach to achieve our security interest in Afghanistan, spending over $100 billion a year, and that the American taxpayers will be on the hook indefinitely. Even when we're out of Afghanistan, there's a projected $8 billion a year cost in terms of maintaining Afghan security forces because they don't have an economy to do that. That we are, in fact, I think our first actions then were brilliant. We gave air logistical and advisory support to the anti-Taliban forces in the country, which were the Northern Alliance, and they drove them out. And instead of using our leverage to say, you know, you need to reach out to, say, the anti-Taliban Pashtun elements of the country, and that we'll assist you so long as you keep the Taliban and al-Qaeda out, we led an effort to superimpose a political system on them that doesn't fit the political culture of the country, that doesn't have the capacity to govern outside of Kabul, that is mired in corruption. We're trying to restructure that society and build them the economy at U.S. taxpayers' expense that they've never had before. I mean, you say we're not nation building to build them a Switzerland, but at over $100 billion a year, we ought to expect a Switzerland. So but I got to tell you this, I'm in a hard position here. I came into Congress after this whole thing was going on, and I volunteered to go to Iraq, even though I disagreed with invading the country, because I believe that once in, we have an obligation to finish the job. We just can't simply run away. We can't simply expeditiously extricate ourselves from that situation. But so I just want to tell you that if I've served this country now for a third time, Army, Marine Corps, and as a member of Congress on this committee, and if I can accomplish anything on this tour of duty, it is keeping this country from ever going down this path again. But with that said, could you please, no matter, I was with the Marines in Helmand Province in November, and where they are making tactical successes, but tactical successes on the ground are meaningless unless we have the Afghans coming in with a governance piece after we stabilize an area. So could you tell me, General Petraeus or Madam Secretary, are the Afghans able to, in fact, accomplish that? Are there any, can you give me any specifics where they've stepped in?
Absolutely.
On the governance? Please go ahead.
Absolutely, Congressman. If you look at the 5 central districts of Helmand Province, you will find actually quite good district governors now in charge of each of them. In some cases, it's taken more than one to get to that point, such as in the case of Marja. But in each case now, we assess the district governors and the provincial governor as really quite positive individuals and doing good work. With respect, I think you're arguably correct that the first actions were brilliant. Certainly it was a lightning campaign, and it took out the Taliban, but they were not sufficiently capitalized on. And had we left it like that, it would have been in the hands of the warlords that we used to get rid of the Taliban. And there's no indication that they could have controlled the country, and you would have plunged back into a civil war. So I think, again, that we certainly have to think through, the what-thens and the second and third and fourth order effects of these kinds of endeavors without question, and I agree with you very strongly on that. And also with respect, this is the only approach to achieving our core objectives in Afghanistan. Now, if you don't want to achieve those objectives, then that's a different matter. But the fact is that we have tried every other approach, and I put a slide in there that showed the different approaches that we tried all along the way, essentially counterterrorism, counterinsurgency light, and these other approaches. And I can assure you that none of them is adequate, and that is why we are doing what we are doing. Finally, I think it's only fair to recognize that Afghanistan actually, first of all, was a nation state before our own state, and second, had some 40 to 50 years of quite reasonable national peace and tranquility under a central government from Kabul prior to the onset of the tragic 30 years of war that they have sustained. Thanks again, Congressman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.